Welcome to the CereCore podcast, where we focus on the intersection of healthcare and IT. From practical conversations to strategic thought leadership, let's unpack the decisions, challenges, and journey of those whose purpose it is to deliver technology that improves healthcare in their communities. Well, today I'm pleased to have a co-host on the show for the first time, Dan Eyre. Dan's the Vice President of Business Development for CereCore International. At the end of 2022, we expanded our operations into the UK, and Dan was one of the first to join our team at CereCore International. So Dan, welcome, and why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
Thank you very much. Phil, as you mentioned, I joined early in 2023 as the VP for Business Development. I've got a lot of experience within the NHS, and I'm really, really proud to be joining CereCore, especially CereCore International. So I wanted to introduce our guest today, a guy called Matt Connor, who is the CIO of Liverpool Women's NHS Foundation Trust. Matt has been a digital leader for over 20 years in healthcare. He started his role in networking and IT support, and today, as I mentioned, he's the CIO of Liverpool Women's NHS Foundation Trust. We've been working with Liverpool since the beginning of this year, and we're really proud to be part of the significant milestones and the EPR implementation of MEDITECH Expanse. As you may or may not know, Liverpool were the first trust to go live with MEDITECH Expanse within the UK, and we're really proud to be part of that organisation. So, hello, Matt.
Hi, Dan. You okay?
Yeah, it's good. So, I wanted to start off with, for our listeners, walk us through a little bit of your EPR implementation journey. What has it been like? What has some of the key milestones been? And, some of the scary bits, maybe.
Okay, absolutely. So I joined Liverpool Women's Hospital in December 2019, so literally 3 months before the world went mad and COVID happened, and there was a huge pull on digital transformation during that time. During the same time, we were just coming out of a failed EPR program. So as you can imagine, there was quite a lot of confidence that had been lost in digital systems. And, let's not forget that we had a legacy environment. So our PAS, which had been a really well-used, well-trusted system, was over 20 years old. In fact, it was closer to 25 years at that point. So you can just imagine, it served its purpose quite well, but it was getting long in the tooth. So we rapidly needed to put in place a new strategy and a new direction of travel. So we managed that. We implemented a new strategy called Digital Generations, and our focus was to replace that legacy system with a modern modular EPR system, which was MEDITECH Expanse. Our journey officially started around September 2020, and it's been a enjoyable and challenging almost 3 years since we embarked on that journey. And I think some of our key challenges were to stabilize the legacy system on new hardware initially, and then it was really much around the engagement of the organization. As you know, successful EPR is only as good as it's configured and the clinical leadership that you've got within the program. So that was our main focus. And then, of course, I think with it being a new product in the NHS, we are the first to go live with MEDITECH Expanse in the NHS. There's a fair degree of bespoke, tailor, and customization within the product that would meet the needs of the NHS, really. So that was our key focus as well. But it's been a huge amount of work, I would say, Dan, and we're just pleased to be at this point now.
Excellent.
Oh, that's great, Matt. It's been quite the journey for you, and yes, joining an organization just prior to the COVID hitting is always a fun one for sure. So, I think a lot of people are probably curious about what was it like working with CereCore International. With us being an international company, having folks there in the UK as well as resources here in the US. perhaps, how did it work? How did it go? What were some of those, the benefits and even challenges of working with an international company?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Phil. First of all, so absolutely spot on. It was a new experience, I think, for us and CereCore as well. What I would like to say, the most important bit, it's about relationships and partnership working, and it's about building trust. I think we met originally, Dan and some others at the MEDITECH User Network conference in Liverpool last year. And at that point, I think we were really faced with a couple of challenges. One was resources and skill set. It's a constrained market, really. I think we often pull on the same resources in the NHS, and I think what stood out for CereCore was you've got that skill set, you've got that knowledge base, you understand the products, and that was quite compelling for us. And we sat down and we had some discussions around where our challenges were. Predominantly, I would say in two areas. One was around, again, that requirement for specialist knowledge and support around the product, particularly with configuring our EPR to meet the NHS standards, and we are a bit different to the NHS. There are things that are common, but of course there are things that are very particular to how we work here. The second thing was also building at pace. So we had quite a lot of challenges, I guess, in terms of the volume of work in our clinic build, in our electronic prescribing, and also within our roles and our configuration of access for staff as well. So I think that's where we really benefited from working with CereCore. And in terms of the US and the UK team, I felt that worked really well. So what you had was a very approachable, very likable, very understanding UK team who understands our environment, but with a really strong US subject matter expert in the terms of the products. And again, there was some of that also in the UK team. But I think that really helped us to kind of get to where we needed to be within the timescales we had.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that, man. I think that sort of leads on to, and I know it's relatively short after you've gone live, but now you've had a couple of weeks to reflect on some of the key ingredients to your success. What lessons have you learned so far? And obviously we know there'll be more lessons to learn going forward, but have you had time to reflect at all around anything that you might want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the first thing I'd like to start off with is, having strong executive support has been key, because they discharge then some of those responsibilities across their portfolio. So let's think about the really strong operations support we've had, which is key in terms of planning and cutover planning, and then managing the impact as you go live. So that executive support has been really strong. That is key, I would say. We've also then, from an extension of that, we've had a really effective clinical digital team. So we've had from a trust-wide CCIO, which is a Chief Clinical Information Officer, supported by, we would say, divisional CCIOs or departmental CCIOs. We've had a number of digital lead nurses. We've had pharmacy leads to build the EPMA. We've had a really strong clinical network, basically, and around that has been the governance. So we've had sort of design authority structures in place. That's been essential to ensure that we get the system largely right. And I'll say largely right, because you can never be 100% right, because you learn things as you go live, and your optimization and stabilization phases kick in. But it has been absolutely key in getting the majority of the builds right. And then, I guess, beyond that, we've had a really talented digital team. My team is quite small, I would say, but we've utilised predominantly the staff that are employed, have worked here for some time, and we've supplemented them with agency. And I guess we've been quite lucky with agency, because we've had some absolutely fantastic training resources, which is really difficult to secure, and can be a risk to a programme if you don't get your training right. So we've had that blend of sort of permanent and some sort of agency and temporary staffing that's helped the actual, if you like, technical components of build. And then I guess from a success piece, it's the strong identity that we've had. I mean, we developed a brand called DigiCare, which it's interesting because staff don't talk about necessarily the product itself. They talk about DigiCare, which is the brand, and that's really helped kind of bring a lot of things together, from the communications through to, you know, how people interact with the system and understand what the system is about. I guess in terms of the lessons, how we can be even better, I guess we've had some issues around role-based access, which is not totally unsurprising, I guess, given that our system was 27 years old at the time of its removal. So there wasn't even a concept of such a thing then. And as you can imagine, people implement workarounds and things evolve, you know, organically. And I think that doesn't always translate well into a structured role-based system. And then the other thing, just to kind of, you know, what we would always say, you know, is training. It's really difficult because people have got a day job. You know, we have got a very pressured healthcare environment, and, you know, people are, you know, quite rightly focused on clinical service delivery. So getting the training right and making sure it's in the life of is probably an area we didn't get quite right. That being said, what we did deliver was really impressive, and again, that was based on the talented team that we had at our disposal.
That's great. You know, obviously you've mentioned about how big a change the EPR implementation is, and, you know, you put a whole brand behind it. That's how big a change it was. And you mentioned some of the stuff around role-based access control, some of the training. But have you had a chance to see any of the benefits for the staff or the patients yet, or is it still a little bit early in your journey?
It's probably a bit of both, isn't it? I think there are some early benefits, you know, from a safety perspective. You know, the strengthened electronic prescribing piece has been really well received. And again, that's because we've had really strong pharmacy leadership. But the benefits, obviously, from a safety perspective are, you know, at instant in terms of, you know, co-signing, in terms of the drug dispensing and prescribing. Again, we got a lot more auditing capability around, you know, our ordering and results piece. And of course, you know, a lot of our, you know, documentation now is a lot more structured than it was in previous systems. But, you know, let's be realistic. You know, you get a lot more disbenefits in those sort of very disruptive first weeks and probably months, you know, in terms of new processes, people actually, you know, it's a real shock for people. You know, it's actually happened, and they're getting used to the system. So that'll take some time. And what we'll expect to see then is some really great ideas of how we can make it better. So, and I think we've tried to manage that expectation as best we can, because we've always said this is day one, you know, so we're in sort of week 3 now of that journey. So what we've got is the platform to be really great in terms of digital maturity and, you know, positive impact for patient care and for our clinicians and nurses and midwives. But it will take some time to really drive the benefits through adoption. But yeah, I think it's a bit of combination of both, I would say. So we have got some disbenefits, but there's some early wins already.
Excellent. That's good to know. Thank you. So I wanted to ask around, you know, when you worked with CereCore International, what actually stood out to you as the difference and the experience that you had with us as a company?
I think the first thing was you got it. You not only, I don't mean just in terms of the product, because you do have experience in terms of the EPR vendor that and the product we implemented, but actually it was the understanding, it was the approach, it was everything. You provided a degree of assurance, I would say, in those early conversations. Then you backed it up with a prompt and detailed and robust offer that we took you up on in terms of progressing that. And I would, you know, like to say that that's really been a success of this program, because through that collaborative work, we built a strong partnership. and you've helped us. I think one of the things that stood out, apart from the knowledge, was your commitment to the project, and I would say your agility. So as you can imagine, things do change, and I think that original scope of what we may have bought some days for or agreed to slightly shifted as we got into some of the more detailed components or the latter stages of the project. And even post go live, you were there personally, Dan, and others doing floor walking, so you've got a sense of what it means in terms of deploying our EPR, and you got a sense of the experiences that staff have had in those first few weeks, and no doubt you take that back, and that feeds right back into your organisation. So it's like a cyclical thing. So you've really kind of stood with us side by side from a fairly early part of the programme to post go live as well. So, and that's what partnerships are built on.
Excellent, thank you.
Well, Matt, we certainly do really appreciate that partnership. And, I know when I had the opportunity to visit, it's been a few weeks ago now, certainly enjoyed meeting you personally as well as your team, and really just honestly getting to observe, everything that you had done and put in place in order to make this project and transformation a success for your organization. So, and just the collaboration between you and the rest of all of the different stakeholders that you've talked about here, was truly a good sight to see. And so, we always like to wrap up these podcasts with just kind of an open call to you, really to share. Is there anything that's top of mind to you, having now gone through this EPR implementation, this journey? For other, folks, CIOs in your seat, or really in any other organization that is, either on that journey now or getting ready to embark on that journey, that, kind of those words of wisdom that you think, what, here's the, top couple of things that you just absolutely need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Phil. I think, the overriding piece for me is it's less about the technology, it's more about the people at all levels, bringing people along. So that is about having strong digital leadership around you and within the team, that talent within the team to deliver. But also it is about building it's about organizational change, and it just happens to be digital by nature. So really embrace that, meet that head on early, because some of the slowest things to change are mindsets, preparation, and you bring people along. So we've done an awful lot of work on that. The other thing I would say is it's okay to get it wrong. Just be open to that. So having strong governance and transparency, utilize any external bodies you can. So we work closely with NHS England to do sort of peer reviews on our programme. And we've taken those lessons and recommendations on board, and that's really helped us. So, be open to kind of being better along the way. What you start off with won't necessarily be how you kind of finish it. Build those partnerships with organisations, because you will struggle potentially with doing it all on your own. We just don't have some of the skill sets and the resources available, unless there's significant cost incurred. I think if you can utilise partnerships like we have done with CereCore International, and others, we've used others as well in terms of some of the technology bits. It's really good to do that, and go on that journey together. The final bit I would say is manage, have a realistic scope. Take a really risk-based approach. If it's a significant change, you can always optimize later on. It's about a safe implementation first and foremost. So manage expectations as well on the ground, because what you don't want is that's now done, you move on. It's the start, isn't it? At the start of really exploiting some of the technologies and exciting opportunities that that innovation allows. So that's, I'd probably say they're my pearls of wisdom, having gone through this.
Well, I can say your pearls of wisdom are spot on. I think that was a master's class in all of those components, right? You talked about the individuals, people, the relationships, the communication, the governance, expectation setting, and just that collaborative, non-silo driven approach is absolutely critical. So, Matt, thank you so much, not only for your time today, but for your partnership with CereCore International. I know our team has enjoyed tremendously working side by side with you and your team, and we look forward to continuing to do that. As you mentioned, these EPRs are a journey, not just a simple project. And so we look forward to being of assistance in any way that we can on a go-forward basis for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Phil, and thanks, Dan, and likewise, we look forward to continuing that partnership with you guys.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the CereCore podcast. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform for more episodes. Connect with us on LinkedIn. Visit our U.S. website at CereCore.net, and for those abroad, visit CereCoreInternational.net. Learn more about our services and find resources. At CereCore, we are healthcare operators at heart and know the difference that the right IT partner can make in delivering quality patient care 24/7. Let's help make IT better. Here's to the journey.